Hi, my name is Dooley. Today is November 9th, 2024, and this is my persuasive speech. The speech is on fast fashion and its hidden costs. Throughout the 2020s, social media has popularized the use of internet buzzwords, which are words that users tend to throw around to sound informed on a topic. One of the biggest buzzwords today is sustainability. Sustainability in regard to the environment is defined by the Oxford Dictionary as avoidance of the depletion of natural resources to maintain an ecological balance. As a longtime fashion enthusiast, I have witnessed discourse about all sectors of the fashion industry, but never has there been as big of a divide as there is on the topic of fast fashion and its questionable relation to sustainability, especially with the popularization of brands like Shein and Fashion Nova. This debate is so important to weigh in on because of how mainstream fashion has become as a hobby and the ease of which fast fashion provides cheap and trendy clothing. Under this stylish facade, however, lies a business plan that exploits the environment, workers in undeveloped countries, and the trends they create so they can turn a profit. So, what is the fast fashion business model? Well, first, when fast fashion begins its process, it starts with a design. Designs can be in-house or out-of-house, but regardless, they are usually meant to reflect a specific trend that is going in on the time. Number two, it will then go to production. Retailers usually outsource their production in countries overseas, such as China or India. And finally, clothing is then shipped to the consumers. So some of the benefits of this business model are: one, cheaper labor. Fast fashion companies will cut costs with labor so they can expedite the shipping process. Another benefit is the swift movement to consumers. As I mentioned, because there is a lower labor cost, fast fashion can afford to spend more on getting the clothes from maker to the consumer. And the biggest benefit is the better lead time. An academic journal written by Kalung Karen Moon, Ji-Yun Lee, and Siseong Charlotte Lai about a South Korean fast fashion hub, Dongdaemun, states, while the lead time necessary to develop a new fashion concept ranges from only a few hours to 2 days, most other industrial cultures need at least 3 months on average. This is incredibly fast, and Dongdaemun is not special to other fast fashion companies. Their speed at which they provide their clothing can be up to 45 times faster as regular fashion companies. Now, on paper, this sounds pretty great. However, there are 3 things fast fashion has to prey on to work as a business model. The first of which being environmentally unfriendly production practices. This graph from a 2017 study by Justin Boucher and Damien Friet on microplastics shows that 35% of all microplastics in the ocean can be traced to synthetic fibers, which fast fashion almost completely uses. These are fibers like polyester and cotton, and microplastics don't biodegrade, meaning the top that you buy from a fast fashion company could exist longer than you or I will. Another ethical concern with fast fashion is its labor practices. Labor practices in fast fashion are mostly sourced from countries with lax labor laws. For instance, an information sheet about the harms of fast fashion written by Mushafiq Wadood states, women and girls from the most marginalized communities in India toil for as little as 15 cents an hour in their homes. To give you some perspective, as of 2024, according to the U.S. Department of Labor, the federal minimum wage is $7.25, which is about 48 times the amount that fast fashion companies pay. These low wages are compounded by the long hours that workers have to work. An article published on ProQuest about Shein working conditions reported that workers were working 12-hour work weeks and 6 to 7 day work weeks. This is incredibly unethical And fast fashion is notorious for having these cut costs so they can do better in other parts of their sector. Another thing that fast fashion does is create microtrends. Microtrends are small trends that are typically very short-lived that companies will try to create and proliferate and begin to move so they can move clothing to consumers. A little bit of an anecdote. So earlier this year when the coquettes trend was going out of style, I would see clothing from that style in landfills, and that is not particular to that trend. Microtrends increase the amount that fast fashion companies sell and also increase the amount that goes into landfills, which again are very not biodegradable. Some examples of microtrends include the coquette or mob wife trend. So what can you do to avoid fast fashion? Well, there are two big alternatives that you can do. Number one, visit thrift stores. Thrift stores are great and very affordable options for vintage clothing. And as I'm sure you may know, vintage clothing doesn't go out of style. Vintage is one of those styles that is timeless and is often repeated throughout time. And thrift store is a great place to get. Another place you can go is a secondhand site such as Depop. This provides the ease of fast fashion while also making sure you give a piece of clothing a second life. But the most important thing you can do is not overconsume. While buying secondhand is important, consumers need to be mindful that they are still consuming. An article from University Wire that discusses fast fashion and overconsumption puts it best when it says, people often acknowledge that thrifting is a more sustainable option, but they forget that this is still consumption. In conclusion, we must be responsible consumers and refuse to look away from injustices we see in fast fashion by voting with our dollars. If we come together and refuse to buy from these unethical businesses, we can help people in different countries get better working conditions and refuse to contribute to the massive amounts of pollution that fast fashion causes. I hope that the next time you see the cute top from Shein that you've been wanting for a long time, or nice pants from Fashion Nova, that you look at the cost that is beyond the price tag.